No one is safe from the power of the ancient Egyptians, who put their stamp all over the world. The Hindu religion, though very, very native to India, had two influences. One, the Indo-European people who brought in some of their magicals and conjurings, and then the Egyptians who brought in this. The sun rises on Egypt as it did in Europe and Asia, but no one thought to make it central to their religions except the Africans. But when the Phoenicians decided to move into the regions of the Indians, they didn't just bring this sun disk to them. But first, we should look at these pictures by Phoenicians to show you that they brought the sun disk from the Egyptians. And you can see it right there in these pictures. But then they brought it into India. This radiant fellow is Paramatma, and his name is Para, meaning the Most High, as in paramount, as you see in Indo-European languages. Many other have the similar word, and Atma, that one meaning eternal self. This word I immediately can tie it to Aten, the word Aten. This guy you will see, or this thing you will see, is directly connected to the Aten, not just in how it's described, but in everything. Let's read from the Bhagavad Gita what it says about Paramatma. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of the material nature. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and the non moving, because he is subtle. He is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. Although the Supersoul appears to be divided among all beings, he is never divided. He is situated as one. Although he is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that he devours and develops all. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Now, some obvious similarities between this god and the Aten of Egypt are very simple. One, them manifesting in light. Secondly, them not being a being, but instead being a light and having being part of everything and nothing at the same time. But as we go on, we realize that this supreme God or supreme soul is similar to that of the God of the Jews in how he is described. This would be shocking if it wasn't true for the Phoenicians as well. The Phoenicians, like I said, brought this concept to India. Before this, and I'll show you later, India's gods were pretty much more simplistic. and they didn't really use writing. They got the writing from the Phoenicians. So, if we start at the beginning, the ancient Egyptian sun disk, the Aten, wasn't always used for the solo god in the time of Akhenaten. In most of Egypt, it was used to show divinity of the other gods. For example, Horus, Sobek, Anubis, Anukis, Sekhmet, Ptah, Ra, Hathor. You can see there that the sun is very important and it's placed just above the head as if it's some kind of crown of illumination. And you will see that the other gods of other nations do not have this disk. They have sun gods who have a disk of the sun, but it is limited to that specific god. But suddenly they all have them. Suddenly divinity is having this crown behind your head. Whether it's the Indians, the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Jews, the Canaanites, the Christians, Islam, anybody. Now, of course, this light is now called the halo, and of course, according to Wikipedia, the earliest halos are depicted in, take a guess, Egypt. And then they're passed on all the way to these different cultures, and you can see how extensive. I want to show. That's why I showed you the Egyptian one. I want to show you just how far and wide it was. It was ubiquitous with being divine. And so this divinity, this illumination that starts taking place in other places of the world is a direct of this halo effect. Now, the reason I avoided the word halo is because depending on who you ask, a halo has to be at the back of the neck in a specific way. And so the Iranians, though later than the Egyptians, would be given that title of halo. Instead, I prefer sun disk because sun disk is the definite shape. And as you can see there, the Egyptians would win that. The Iranians didn't have that until they had borrowed it from the Egyptians. This is Bel, the god of the Canaanites, the Assyrians, Phoenicians, Akkadians, and most Semitic Afroasiatics, and also Sumerians. Bel is seen as a god, but he's not necessarily associated with the sun until Balashmir and all these other versions of Baal, one representing the sun and one representing the moon. You can see he slowly transforms into an Egyptian, and then he gets a modern view like a Roman, and they put sun discs behind their heads. One has got the sun and the moon.